Welcome, everyone. This is the first ever pre-nursing panel, and we're doing this virtually given the current situation with COVID. So thank you all for coming today. My name is Amy Brady, Assistant Director of the Student Resource Center in the College of Natural Sciences. Today, we have a panel of 6 nursing students in different nursing programs here at San Francisco State who will be joining us to share their experiences. We will also offer a Q&A portion to the second half of today's event so that students who are joining us can ask questions. Please make sure you're asking your questions in the chat feature. That way we can go ahead and ask our panelists one by one. So just to let you know how today's agenda will go, we'll start off with introductions with our 6 panelists. We will moderate a total of 5 questions. These questions will cover a lot of general information that students typically have questions about, and then we'll open up for Q&A using the chat feature. During this time, I do ask students to please keep your mics muted, except for our panel join us each time they speak. That way we have as little background noise as possible. The other thing I want to let folks know is that we are recording the session so that students who cannot attend the event can still watch the event at a future date. Or if there was something that you forgot that one of our panelists discussed, you can go back and watch it at a later date. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna ask the panelists to each please introduce yourself. Please share your name, what year you program, the type of nursing program you're in, and if there's a specialization that you have. And we'll start with Mireya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mireya. I am a second year ELM student, so that's an entry-level master's student, and the program's broken up into levels. So I'm level 4, which is just the second semester of your second year. My specialization is adults.
Hi, my name is Puti, and I am a BSN student. I'm second year as well. I'm on my 4th level. I don't have any specialist as a BSN student. Yeah.
Hi there, I'm Doug. I'm like Maria, an ELM student. I'm level 4, and I'm specializing in pediatrics. Welcome.
My name is Alana. I am a BSN student, year 2, so level 4, and we do not specialize in the BSN program.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm a level 4 in the Accelerated Entry Level Master's Program, and my specialty is in women's health.
Okay, my name is Caitlin Dugan. I am also in the ELM program, Entry Level Masters, and I am year 2, so level 4, and my focus is pediatrics.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing that. I think just personally for myself, I don't have a clear understanding of what these levels mean. Would one be willing to share what these levels mean so that students are aware?
I can. So the levels are just the semesters that we're in school. So your very first semester, you're in level 1. The next semester will now be level 2, and so on. So the BSN program has 4 levels total because it's 2 years long. So 2 semesters. And then the entry-level masters, the accelerated one, because they go over summer, they are also only 2 years, but they just do an extra semester during the summer. And then the non-accelerated one is over 3 years.
So then the first question we wanted to know is, can you guys tell us about your educational path and motivation to become a nurse? Did you guys major in something else before? Did you attend other colleges or universities? And what really interested in you or motivated you to become or pursue your nursing degree?
So in undergrad, I majored in public health, and I know to be a nurse, but I knew that I liked health-related stuff. So I did public health, and I actually ended up getting into the workforce for that. I started doing some program development, some grant writing, and about 2 years into working, I knew that I wasn't really fulfilled in my job, and I really wanted something that I could work directly with patients. So my motivation for going into nursing was that it combined sort of my interests in health and education, but also allowed me to work directly with patients, and I felt that for health assistant and MD, in that they really placed an emphasis on like the overarching overall patient care, and health education was really big in nursing. So
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of educational path, I went straight to San Francisco State after graduating from high school. So I entered SFSU as a pre-nursing major, and it took me 3 years to finish all the prerequisites classes and complete all the requirements like the Ts test and volunteer stuff. So I applied like to nursing school by the end of my junior year in college, and I got in. So this is my 5th year in college. My motivation was that since I was little, I like to like take care of people. Like I'm the oldest sibling in my family, and I just like to. I know that nursing is very fulfilling and rewarding, and I just want to work for a job that can really leave an impact on people, like on my patient's life. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's Doug. So I originally graduated in business administration a while back, several years ago, a couple of years ago. That was a joke. I'm kind of the oldest guy in the program, I think. Anyway, kind of my motivation for going into it, I was in business in the past. I really didn't have a passion going to work. And I ended up becoming an EMT and really loved that. And kind of the next step was nursing. So I did prereqs over several years, and really liked San Francisco's program just because, it kind of, if you read the website, it's a kind of a holistic program, and, you know, it takes into consideration various opportunities to help out the community. And if you go here, you really will get that opportunity. We're really involved with public health and getting out into the community. So that's it, I think.
So my name's Alana again. For my education, I did 2 years of prerequisite work at Kenyatta College, and I originally went in as a biology major. And while I was in community college, I didn't do so well in the math and science parts of biology. And so I went to my kind of like my mentor, and I basically told her that I thought I wanted to do biology, but I'm not actually good at it. And so she just listed me out a whole list of majors that are science focused, but not so math focused. And one of them was nursing. So I kind of just picked it to pick it. And once I started with anatomy, I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved my professors. They were so amazing there. And a lot of them were nurses. So they encouraged me to like really pursue nursing. And I got to do a lot of volunteer hours through my connections with them. I applied to nursing school my first year and did not get in to SF State and a lot of other state schools in the area. And then on my second year of applying, I did end up getting in. It was the happiest day ever. So yeah, for me, nursing was kind of just a random draw of the dice, and I actually fell super, super in love with it. And now I can't see myself doing anything else because it's such a meaningful work, and I love going into clinicals and being able to actually say that I have impacted someone's life by my job. So.
And this is Kristen speaking. I originally got my BS in microbiology from UC Santa Barbara, and then I realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life in lab or anything of that nature. So I took some time. After I graduated, I worked for home health, and then I worked as an ER scribe, and I saw a lot of what the nurses were doing. And my family has always just kind of had a background in healthcare. And so that's when I decided to apply back into school, and I got accepted into SF State's accelerated entry level program. I got into nursing because in the work experience that I did get post-grad, it just wasn't, it was always like I was healthcare related, but it wasn't as fulfilling. I wanted to be in a position where I could work closer with patients. And I guess that's why nursing struck me as, yes, like this is what I want to do. And so I kind of felt that as my calling.
Hey, so my trajectory was a little unconventional. So I actually started undergrad in a nursing program in Chicago, and I did it for a semester, and it was like pretty intense. And I just had this gut feeling that I wasn't ready for it, or that just wasn't the time for me. So I switched kind of all over the place, went to philosophy for a while, loved that, and then eventually ended up transferring to USF, where I got an environmental science degree. I kind of chose that because I knew for sure that I wanted to do something that benefited society, and I liked science. So those are the only two things that was helpful to me in figuring out what I wanted to do. After I graduated, I worked a bit in the field, but then I missed that kind of person-to-person connection. So I eventually got a job at this company called One Medical Group, and where I became a phlebotomist, and then a phlebotomy manager of 15 people. So I did that for about 4 years. And it was kind of there where I learned, interacting with different nurse practitioners and doctors and physician assistants and RNs, where that I was able to experience working with them and figure out what it was I wanted to do. And so that's kind of where I decided that nursing for sure was my path, and kind of my decision. It was because I really connected to the holistic approach that the nurses had in interacting with their patients. I really connected with that. And so I applied to San Francisco State. It was the only school I applied to, got in, which I'm so happy about because I know it's really hard. I've kind of had the same process of elimination going with my gut throughout the program. I've switched my major from public health, which is what I originally started the program with, to pediatrics, because I found that I really just connected to the peds experience, and particularly the little tiny babies. They're so cute.
Thank you everyone for sharing. And I do apologize that I lost connection mid-sentence as I was asking the question itself. So thank you, Jessica, for filling in on the questions. So the next question that we have for our panelists is, what is the most rewarding thing about your specific nursing program?
It's kind of hard to choose just one, but if I had to choose something, I would say that I think SFSU does a really great job of making sure that, during the program, we are working with diverse populations and really have a strong social justice focus. So I feel like for me, it was really important to make sure that when I chose a school, that was something that they valued, because it's something that I really care about as well. So I think it's just nice that the way that our learning is structured really has that social justice thread throughout.
I feel like one of the most rewarding moments is when you try to study so hard for a test, and you study for weeks, so many nights, and you put all nights to study for a test, and you finally got an A on it. So it was one of the most rewarding moments for me. And another will be whenever I go to clinicals and I really help out those patients and they leave some compliments to me. It's either patients or nurses or my preceptors, whenever they compliment. I remember there's one time I helped a patient out, and she said to me, I can tell that nursing was your calling. And she said, I have a nice heart and a warm heart and a warm spirit. And it just made my day. And I felt at that moment, everything was worth it. And it was the perfectly right career job for me to do. So, yeah.
Hi, it's Doug again. So I would definitely say the most rewarding part about this program is the clinical experience. And every single clinical experience has been good for me. I'd say things have been kind of cut short because of the COVID intervention, but this last, in level 4, you know, you do community health, and I was in the tenderloin and like basically right in the heart of everything that's going on with, you know, IV drug needle use, and you're just basically, you see it from a public health perspective, and it's pretty amazing. Like, and there's just such a level of trust with nurses that everybody's willing to talk to you, and it's just really, it's a good rewarding experience overall. And the clinicals are really good. The nurses have there's a little bit of street cred with SFSU, and they'll let you perform a lot in the hospitals. They like SS. Sorry, I'm getting tongue tied here. They like students from our school. So anyway, found a way to rearrange that sentence. Okay, that's all I got.
I would say that the most rewarding part of being at that SF State BSN program would be the fact that we have small class settings. We have 20 people in our BSN cohort and 20 people in our ELM cohort. And just being able to really know our professors on a very intimate level and being able to get really close with the peoples in our cohort. I feel like I wouldn't be able to do clinicals without them and without their support. And I'm really grateful to have so little people so that we're able to kind of know everyone, and it's a little family.
I think the most rewarding part about this nursing program is helping me to understand how health is a very holistic concept. I think the sooner you realize how health is connected in its social aspects, its political aspects, you start to understand people better. And as such, I feel like through this nursing program, it's helped me to be able to connect with people better, to understand what makes people tick, and how to overall just empower people.
Yeah, I think I'll just reiterate kind of what everyone else said. San Francisco State's program definitely has the program in a way that you are able to reach a lot of underserved communities, which I think is really cool. And definitely a lot of other programs don't do that quite as much and as holistically as this program does. I love the small class size as well. That is a really big thing because you get to know everyone, but you really get to know your teachers. And that's for like forward thinking. It's a lot easier to kind of plan for when you're applying for jobs and able to get those letters of recommendations, which is like a really big thing that you should always kind of be thinking about, right? And I think, like Doug said, that we have a pretty good reputation in a lot of the hospitals. And so I think that the hospitals and the nurses that we are shadowing and working with do have just kind of off the bat respect for you and getting into this program that's pretty well known. And the other thing that I would add is that I've had amazing clinical instructors, which I think really makes your experience in nursing school. Some of the best ones, I mean, teachers I've ever had, but they're able to kind of like work, you know, you can go to them during your clinicals when you have questions or having a tough time, and they push you to learn and push you to kind of just become the best version of yourself in the hospital, which has been really amazing.
Thank you all for sharing. It sounds like your individual programs have been very rewarding in a lot of different ways, and you're getting a very well-rounded education and experience. On the flip side of what's most rewarding about your individual programs, what have you found to be the most challenging?
I think for me, because I work part-time, So it's been hard, especially as the clinicals get a little bit harder throughout the program, to just juggle everything, because you do have all of your classes, which, you know, is where you get your lecture, you do your tests and stuff. And then on top of that, you have to do your clinical at the same time during the semester. And you usually have 2 clinicals going for each semester. So if each one is a full day, you really have maybe like one free day during the week to try to fit in some of your schoolwork, and then you're probably doing like stuff on the weekend and in the evenings too. So it is hard to juggle everything to start with. Like once you get a couple of weeks into the semester, I think you kind of find your groove and you know like what you can do and when you can be most productive. But I think that's sort of a big learning curve it was for me, and at least from like the classmates that I've talked with, like that can be a challenge, just trying to see what your schedule is going to look like, and then it changes every semester. So just kind of reorienting yourself each time.
Hello. So I think my personal challenges in this program would be language barrier because I'm an immigrant from China and my English is not my first language. So it will be really challenging for me to learn English and at the same time learning all the medical terms, study for all the tests, like anatomy. That was really difficult. And I was very stressed, but in the end I made it. So I was thinking like if you were an immigrant and or like if English is not your first language and if I can make it, then you can make it. So um, I said it was really difficult and challenging, but in the end it was all worth it. And just use all the resources you can get, talk with your professors, your classmates, and use the advising center. So yeah.
For me, definitely, I'm going to reiterate what Maria talked about, which is time management. I think, you know, we all have things going on in our lives, and really basically prioritizing what you need to do. And it is really about prioritization. So if I could give any advice, it's like at the beginning of the semester, you really want to kind of map out what projects you have going on and make sure you put away the right amount of time for it. And that being said, kind of triple whatever your estimate is and you're probably pretty dead on. So, you know, some things take more time than others, but definitely the most challenging thing is your time management. The content is difficult, but it's not super difficult. It's just, there's a lot. So that's it.
I would say that for me, the most challenging part of this program, and I think any nursing program goes for the same, is just being able to be persistently studying, because it is a 2-year program and there's no, other than summers, at least for the BSNs, there's really no time for downtime. Like once you're done with your tests, there's always something else that you have to study for, another assignment that you have to do, something else that you could be studying for, should be looking at. And so sometimes that real grit to keep moving and keep moving forward can be challenging to start and have on your own and be able to go through the whole program with.
So for me, the most challenging part about this nursing program is that, one, it is accelerated. It's full-time, which means that if any of you are planning to work during nursing school, first props. It is difficult, but it is possible. I think just with being in an accelerated full-time nursing program, it's a balancing act, and that should include self-care. And I think because nursing is a very intensive, both physical and emotional job, it's always hard to, for me at least, it's hard for me to remember, like, okay, you know what, sometimes I just need to take a step back. And I think that's been hard to juggle in nursing school. So always self-care. It's a time management thing.
Mine challenges are pretty similar. Going from full-time work into full-time school was also an adjustment, because it's just totally different parts of your brain that you're using. And I think with that too, just the amount of work that we kind of were exposed to all at once was pretty overwhelming. And you just have to be quick on your feet and prioritize as much as possible and do time management. But then also, like Kristen said, always make sure you make time for yourself. That's huge. Let's see what else. We also do a lot of group works, which I hadn't experienced in my undergrad, a lot of group papers and things like that. And it was challenging, I'd say, because everyone has totally different schedules and different voices when they're writing. So just, having to kind of navigate that and make sure everyone felt heard. And it really teaches you how to work with the team and making sure that you're not leaving anyone out and everyone is being addressed.
Thank you all for sharing. Final moderated question that we have for our panelists is, if you can talk to the freshman version of yourself, what's the advice you would give yourself?
I think one of the things that I think about that I wish I had done when I was younger was some like shadowing or informational interviews, just so that I could start to get an idea of like what are the different types of nursing professions out there, because there's so many specialties and you can take nursing a million different ways. You don't have to work with patients. You could do administration, you could do program development. So I just wish that I had done a little bit more research, so that I could have a better idea of like how nursing so interested in back then, what I like, what I didn't. I couldn't put a job to it. And then the second piece of advice I would say is, if you're even considering doing nursing just a little bit, like get some of your prereqs out the way, like anatomy and physiology, because you're gonna find them useful for a lot of different health professions. So even if you don't end up going with nursing, it'll be helpful. And it's also kind of a good way for you to see if you're interested in the subject matter, because you'll get a lot of anatomy and physiology and a lot of what you learn in nursing school. So it can be a helpful way to try to test the waters on like if you are comfortable with the material.
Would be like to be more proactive and just talk to more people, because I was really introverted. So I really needed to step out of my comfort zone and just get the connections you need with the either professors or the nursing staff, or just with your classmates too. So just plan ahead, and if you're pretty sure that you want to do nursing, and just don't give up on yourself. Like there are many ways to get to there. Like it's not just SFSU. There are many other schools like private or public or even community college, and there's just many ways to go there. So if you're really sure that you want to do this, and just don't give up and keep trying and believe in yourself.
Hopefully you guys can hear me. My internet connection's warbling a little bit, but anyway, the advice that I would give a freshman is make sure you prioritize your workload as far as like classes. Grades are super important in getting into nursing school. And so if you carry a heavy caseload of classes, you're going to be struggling to keep good grades. So make sure you balance it out. I would say if you're taking anatomy, take some easier classes along, that so you can keep your GPA up, because you have to, it's pretty difficult to get into a school unless you have the proper grades. And I'd also say make sure you volunteer and get that experience to make sure you want to go into nursing, because you might find yourself in the hospital and decide that you don't like it at all. So, or it may reinforce the fact that you want to get into nursing. So yeah, definitely keep your grades up for sure. That's all.
The piece of advice that I would have liked to receive when I was a freshman was the importance of each clinical that you have, each hospital setting or community setting that you're in, and the importance of coming at it as if it is already a job interview and already trying to make connections, and just when you're at your clinicals, just being your best, we're always willing to help, willing to learn, even asking questions, even if you don't think that they're smart questions, just asking any questions to show general interest, and bringing food to the nurses on the unit goes a long way. So yeah.
If I could give, I have two pieces of advice. So my first piece of advice for a freshman would be to whatever material or whatever information you are learning, learn like someone's life depends on it. Because when you do get into the work field, the info that you learned it does matter. I will admit, when I was an undergrad student, I would learn enough to be like, I'm familiar with material. If I saw it on an exam, I can probably make it. But when you learn like that, it doesn't stick. And so I've changed the way that I study material or my whatever nursing classes that I am, and it's really made a difference in how I can be a better advocate for my patients. And it's a way that I'm genuinely and truly learning. And the second piece of advice I would give to a freshman is don't be afraid to explore different options in terms of the volunteer opportunities or different school courses. When I initially got accepted into SF State's master's program, I started in public health, but it wasn't until I explored our OB rotation that I fell in love with women's health. And so it's just take different chances and just seek out different opportunities. You'll never know until you just try new things. So
yeah. Some recommendations I would have given to myself when I was younger. I have a few. So one is definitely just trust your gut. If you aren't sure what you want to do, figure out generally what it is you want to do, and definitely figure out what it is you don't want to do. And when you do that, it kind of starts to point to a certain direction. And that's how it happened for me. And then in the program, I trust my gut when I switched to pediatrics because that's where I felt most drawn to. Definitely take any opportunity for any leadership that you could possibly do. This is so important for, your interview process, for them to even look at your applications for any of these programs. So even if, any organization, if you're a manager at your work and it doesn't have anything to do with healthcare, that definitely put it on there and really play up any kind of leadership opportunity you have. And definitely volunteer, like we've said. I think one advantage that I had coming into it is because I was a phlebotomist for so long, I was very comfortable interacting with patients, not to mention poking them, but just kind of I had already learned how to approach a patient, let them know what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and not freaking them out. And it made me less nervous when I was in these rotations doing like more intense stuff that I hadn't done before. So any opportunity to experience that patient one-on-one care is super important, and can be very, very helpful as well in your personal statement as well. And then let's see, practice your interview skills. I wish I knew this when I was younger. It is so, so important. Just do mock interviews all the time because that's the only way you're going to improve. And yeah, it's hugely important. Let's see, I had one other one. Oh, really nail down the reason you want to be a nurse. I think for my interview, that's the heart in all interviews for nursing school. That's the hardest one to really capture, but it's the essence of why do you even want to be going to school? So definitely put pen to paper and really think about your motivation for becoming a nurse and making that clear to the people you're working with.
Thank you everyone for sharing. I learned a lot from just having the six of you answer the 5 questions that we had today. At this point, we're going to open up the forum for questions from our audience. And we are already have one that was typed into the chat. So for all of our pre-nursing students or students who are interested in, if you have questions you would like to ask our panelists, go ahead and use the chat feature to type in. And we're going to ask these questions as we go. And depending on how many you have coming in, we may ask just for a few panelists to answer each question, or if we have time, we can have all 6 of you answer each question. It just depends on how many, since we have quite a few participants in the room right now. So the first question that was asked by our audience is, current COVID-19 situation, reconsider either the nursing profession or your specialization in nursing? Why or why not? So let's go ahead and just have maybe a couple of panelists answer this question for now, because it looks like different questions are coming in as we go.
I can go first if no one else is going. I would say definitely did not have me, or does not have me, reconsidering my path. If anything, I think it reiterates the importance of going into a medical career. Not only are you, is public health such an important thing and it affects every single person in the world, but you're also in a position where you can directly help others and help these people that are going into these really tough situations, and supporting your team and supporting your patients directly. And also, if you're looking at the economy too, the medical field is probably the most stable one that's happening. So you can always bounce back and fall back on a nursing career. It's definitely a very wise decision. And also very, like I said, very fulfilling.
Caitlin, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just going to say that, it's kind of your time to step up to the plate. I mean, you kind of go in this, it's a great profession, but most people want to go into it because you want to make a difference in the world. And that was a pretty good time to make that happen. So, if anything, it's reinforced the decision I made to become a nurse. So. That's it.
Can we have maybe one more panelist answer that question before we move forward with the next one?
For me, I think it brought to light the risk that does come with working in healthcare, especially in like situations like now. But I think that it also shows like the deep fulfillment that comes from working in nursing, and knowing that like every time you step on the floor, you're making a difference. And like, especially during times when there's a lot of fear around what's going on, that nurses really contribute to help make, not just healthcare continue to go, but like can help people feel comfortable and help people get better. So for me, it was.
Thank you. So the
question was, were you ever discouraged from applying, like within yourself or with from others, to apply to the nursing program? And if so, how did you push through and get to where you are today?
So personally, this was not my first time applying to the program. I had applied before and not gotten in, and this wasn't only the San Francisco State program. This was San Francisco, East Bay, and San Jose, and Sonoma State. I applied to all 4 and did not get in immediately after Kenyatta Community College. And it was incredibly disheartening. I definitely had the thoughts of, oh, is this not for me? Am I not smart enough? Which was really, really odd, because my GPA was a 4.0. And so at this point, it was like, why aren't I getting in? And then so I took the year off and I did a lot of volunteering, a lot of soul searching, and upon reapplying again, and then one more time again, I did get in, and I knew that nursing was something that I wanted. So I was really passionate and determined to get in, and I knew that I belonged in there, even though it didn't work out the first or even the second try. But that now that I'm in it, I was right. Like, it was where I was supposed to be, and I have been loving it. So just my word of encouragement is, if you want to do nursing, keep applying, keep going after it, and you will get it. I'm confident.
I can't help answer that. So I actually applied twice too. The first time I applied with a T score of 87 or something, 85 or 87. So I applied to like a few schools, but I wasn't accepted either. So I was like really stressed out. I was like crying in my car. I was like, is this over? Am I gonna be like homeless? Am I gonna be like, broke forever? But then I did a lot of research though. I talked with the advisors and I kind of researched online. There's like a website called allnurses.com where like people ask a bunch of questions and then other people can answer. So I kind of had an idea after researching for a while, like um what the schools want us to have, like what do they think it's important for us to have, like what other important requirements. Like for example, some people say that some nursing schools, their requirement was like, oh, your GPA has to be 3.5 listed as their minimum requirement. But then if you really researched, and then for people who got into that school, like they all have like 4.0 GPA. So sometimes you just need to dig more into the information that you want to get and like know the truth in this nursing program and know like what they're looking for. Yeah. So just do more research and be prepared. Mm-hmm.
I also want to add to that. In admission and applying to nursing schools it may seem like a very daunting process, but these kinds of milestones don't happen overnight. So what I would recommend is to take things step by step, day by day, make a checklist, get the prereqs done, and just take things one day at a time. And it's just small steps that can help ease and make the transition and the whole application process a lot easier and manageable. And before you know it, you'll have your apps done, you'll get those letters, and yeah.
Thank you. Connection is so if I keep getting pushed out, Jess will take over asking questions. The we have for our list is, how did you study for the ATI Ts? When do you take the Ts test? Is it after a certain amount of classes or whenever you choose to?
So you can take the Ts anytime, and I think it's good for a certain number of years, I think. And it's something like, I actually don't know how many years it's good for, but it doesn't have to be all at once. Something that was really helpful for me, because the Ts includes anatomy and physiology also, was trying to take it shortly after I took those classes, because that material was pretty fresh for me, and the rest of the test is like some math and reading. So you don't feel like you have to take the Ts right away, but it's helpful if you kind of put it together with some of those like science classes, so that you can study for the test without really realizing you're studying for it with that material. Anybody else?
I'll just add a little bit to that. I totally agree with what Maria said. And then the other thing is ATI has practice tests that you can pay for, and it's definitely worth paying the extra money to take it, just to kind of get a ballpark of where you need to improve. I think I took it twice on the practice test, and I was able to, like, the first time I took it, I saw some of the weaknesses that I had, and then I was able to just study those, and that was really helpful. So it's definitely worth, paying the extra money and doing that. Hope that helps.
Adding on to what Doug said, what I did for the Ts is, if you look on Facebook, sometimes there are study groups that have free resources for Ts, or just Googling resources, there might be test bank questions. And just the more questions you take, the more familiar you'll become with the style of how questions are asked or the type of material. And all of that ultimately helps you boost your score in taking the Ts.
Also, So make sure that you do research on the program you're applying to, because some of them will only take your first exam score. So you don't want to take it and feel not ready and then have to use that score for the rest of your like application. So you just want to make sure that like the school allows you maybe like a certain number of attempts, or they'll take your highest attempt before you sign up for it.
Thank you. Students had a few questions about clinicals. What are some of the hospitals that you guys do your clinicals at? And then can you explain more like what a day in clinicals is like?
I can talk about the ones in San Francisco. So the clinicals can be all over the Bay Area, and they really try hard to match you to a hospital that's near your home. We have pretty much in the Bay Area, except we don't have any in North Bay, but we have them in San Francisco, all over South Bay, as well as the East Bay. And so I've worked, I mean, we have, you know, SFGH, Kaiser in the city, UCSF, CPMC. You'll be at Laguna Honda at one point. I think I listed all the hospitals. They're pretty much all the hospitals. They're very well connected. Yeah. So, and then a day in the life of a clinical, basically you go in and, well, depending on if you're in a hospital setting, like the bedside, your clinical day is you go in and you're paired with one nurse for the entire day. And so your day could be 8 hours long, or it could be 12. It could be on the weekend, it could be on the weekday, but that whole time you're with that one nurse and you shadow them through their patients, you know, for all the patients, and you might keep a log for yourself on one of the patients, starting to kind of get an idea of like the full picture and in-depth view of one patient. And the more you do that, you kind of add to your repertoire. So you're like, I can do 2 patients today, and I feel confident going in and working with both of these patients and charting on them. But it's a little bit depends on the nurse you're with and how much they'll let you do. But you're definitely with that one person the whole time.
And I'll just add to that, your first semester, it's you do community in your first semester, so they kind of ease you into it. Like you'll do a care plan on a specific patient, and you do your first semester, you're just kind of learning the basics of patient care, and then like at San Francisco State, the second semester's labor and delivery, and is it psychiatry, right?
Yeah.
And so you get a lot more access to patient care, and you're just, along with what Caitlin was saying, you basically shadow a nurse and you're spending the day with them. And that's kind of your second semester is where you start to develop your skills and kind of you have a little more hands-on experience with the patients.
Going off of clinicals, what is like one of the most challenging situations that you've been through during your clinicals, or like with classes or anything in regards to the nursing program?
I would say the most challenging things during clinical will be sometimes, you know, like there are good nurses and bad nurses. Some nurses are really, really nice and they like to teach students, they love students. But there are also like bad examples of nurses like who are really mean to students, and they're just like burnout. They don't want you to be there, and they don't like students. And sometimes if you get to follow a nurse like that, it's really challenging. Like the day it's gonna be rough because they don't like you, they don't want you to be there. And even like if you try to be nice and even though you try to help them, but then like sometimes you just can't change the situation and you just need to take it. And just don't let the bad nurses discourage you, because you don't want to be them. Even if you follow them and you see, oh, how they're not nice to patients, but like be advocate for yourself and for your patients, and don't be like that. That's what I learned from like challenging clinical days. Yeah.
I would reiterate that, and definitely I think what you learn throughout the clinicals is that, you know, don't take things personally when those things happen to you, and try your best to try to get paired with someone who remembers what it's like to be in nursing school, because those are the best experiences you will have, because they're in that teaching mode and they don't feel super burnt out. But also understanding that, you know, burnout does happen, and it's not a personal issue at all. I think the other hard thing for me was, I mean, you do see some really tough patient cases and you feel pretty helpless because you don't, I mean, all you can do is talk to them. And since you're not doing all of the nursing activities, but you see some hard stuff. They definitely, I mean, you know, some really sick kids or really sick adults who are just kind of, you know, towards the end of their life. It's hard. So there's no way to prepare for that. But I think the more you do it, the easier it is.
Thank you. So then some students also were wondering what personal experiences impacted your interest on entering like the nursing field. So if anyone wants to answer that.
I'll say, like, so as I said earlier, I was in business and really didn't like it. And then I became an EMT and I just felt like I was making a difference pretty much every day. There's some days you don't, but, you know, so it just felt like nursing was a good fit for me. And it just, you know I've made the right choice. And, I don't know if I'm answering the question. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm having a senior moment. That's what I think.
No, you were on it. You're saying that you were fulfilled with your EMT experience, and
yeah,
that really motivated you.
Right.
Got it.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for helping me out.
It's all about teamwork.
Yeah, that's right.
For me, it was similar to Doug. I was, you know, I was doing a lot of different majors and kind of went back and forth with what I wanted to do. But again, just making it clear the things I for sure wanted to do, which is benefit society and, you know, do something science related. And the more experiences you have, you kind of add to that list or add to the list of things you don't want to do. Through phlebotomy, I was able to determine that I want to do one-on-one care. I want to work with people. And it kind of checked all the boxes for me with nursing. And then having worked with different types of medical providers, I was able to really see that nursing was that holistic approach that I wanted to do compared to like a physician assistant, for instance. So process of elimination, go with your gut, and then straight on till morning.
Well put, Caitlin. Good job.
Thank you for that. And then I know you guys all mentioned like you come from different backgrounds, like you study different things, and then eventually you got into the field. Do you think that having some sort of medical background, whether it be like an LVN or CNA, is important before jumping into nursing, or like do you think that plays a role or is important?
It's definitely helpful for sure. You know, you just learn how to talk to patients and, you know, if I didn't have that experience beforehand, I think it would be difficult. But the other side of that is you're kind of thrown into the fire pretty quickly in nursing school. So you adapt relatively quickly. So you might be nervous your first few days on a clinical, but, you know, if you're a person that can adjust easily, it's not a difficult transition. But definitely previous patient care for sure helps.
Yeah, going off of what Doug was saying, I did not have much clinical experience prior to coming into nursing, but one of my friends in the program, she did. And often, especially in the first semester, we were partnered at the same locations, and just being able to see how she would interact with patients taught me a lot on how I should be interacting with patients. And a lot of it is just being comfortable being with people. Because as a nurse, you're really in their space. Like you just meet them and then suddenly you're taking their blood pressure, you're touching them, you're all up on them, you're asking them personal questions. So it's really, like Doug was saying, you learn it pretty quickly. Just being comfortable talking with people, being up close and personal with them. Not having that experience, I feel like it would have helped me to have it, but I didn't, and I feel like I can still go on to be a nurse.
To kind of add to that, I think that if you're on the fence about nursing, you should definitely try to get some clinical experience, because I think doing that one-on-one care is a really good way to tell you if this is for you or not before you make the big commitment of the time and tuition, right? I don't think it's necessary to get into the program. I think that what they look for more is, your volunteer experience, I think is really helpful. And also, again, I really want to stress any leadership you can possibly do. I know that some of my old coworkers who were phlebotomists much longer than me did not become managers, and they did not get into the program. And the only people I know that did make it in the program did have that managerial experience. So really try to get some leadership experience, get some volunteer experience, and also, oh my gosh, now I'm having a senior moment. Doug, you got me. But no, wait, what was I going to say? It was going to be really good too. I can't remember, but those are huge. So definitely put your energy towards that. Oh, I remember. Anything that's kind of unique about you, make sure you use that in your interviews and your personal statement. An example I have is one of our colleagues is our classmates is an EMT, and her whole approach, because she didn't have manager or leadership experience, but she was the only woman on her team. So often she was at these 911 dispatched, emergencies. And she, as the only woman in that scenario, she was able to kind of use that as like where her leadership and, where she overcame some difficulties that happen when you're kind of a minority in those groups. So, there's totally different ways to work it. You just have to be really creative when you're doing your application.
Thank you. And then speaking off of your experience, do you guys have any like top volunteer recommendations, or were there a certain amount of hours that you guys did, or any advice on volunteering before applying to the program?
I would say just go to, like depending on where you live, like check out the near hospitals, their website, and they usually have that volunteer webpage that for you to connect to their volunteer department. And sometimes they're hiring volunteers like all year around. So you can just like call them, email them, or just even like go to the hospital and check with them like whether they're hiring volunteers. And I did my volunteer hours at St. Francis Memorial Hospital. It's a hospital in downtown San Francisco. So what I did, basically, I just applied a bunch of hospitals for volunteering opportunities, and I chose that one over the other one. And then they just had me for an interview, and then they took me into their hospital. I did over 100 hours volunteer hours. So I think that's the minimum requirement for it. It also depends on which program you're trying to apply, but I think in general, its minimum requirement was 100 hours. Mm-hmm.
I have a plug for one. San Francisco General, if you are interested in postpartum care or women's health, you can be a postpartum doula there, and it's a wonderful program. I have been doing it for about a year now, and highly recommend it. There's a really thorough training, and it's a minimum commitment of 8 hours a month. You obviously can do more if you have free time. I started that while I was in school, because I was on the fence about women's health and pediatrics, but I still do it. Well, not during now because of COVID-19, but I highly recommend it. And in general, any volunteer experience, you should get one where you're communicating with patients or physically interacting with them. Communication is probably easier to get, and that is really what all nursing is about, is being able to communicate to patients. And you could totally use that in your application as well.
Yeah, I agree with Pooty to try to get at least 100, and it's helpful to have one that's like health related, and then also feel like you can balance it out with doing something that you really like, so that it can also make you stand out, because there's going to be hundreds of applicants who all have very similar volunteer experiences in the hospital. So if you can try to get something that's a little different, that speaks to your interests and like what makes you unique in the application pool, I think that's also really helpful. And then I also have another plug for a volunteer experience that's healthcare related. You don't have to have prior healthcare experience. It's over at Highland Hospital, and it's called Health Advocates. You can Google it, and they, I think, accept students year round. It's kind of based like in the school year, but what you do is that you help to connect patients from the clinic to different resources they need to sort of help round out their needs in health. So it could be connecting them to like a food support application or like housing application. And I think it also will give you an idea of some of the like the ways that healthcare intersects with all of those things too.
So 2 other things that I did in terms of volunteering was I went to the local homeless shelter near where I live, and I went on their website and there was no clear volunteering application. So I just kind of went, and I went to the front desk area, and I asked if I could speak with the nurse, and they just let me speak with the nurse. And I told the nurse that I was interested in becoming a nurse, and if I could kind of shadow her or work with her or do some things, and she just kind of offered me a full-time volunteering position. And essentially she taught me how to do blood pressures and take glucose checks, and that's what we were doing. So it was very hands-on volunteering, where I kind of just went in and asked if I could do it. But the other thing I did was also get scribe trained. I never worked as a scribe, but I did the whole training for it. And just in case I wouldn't get into nursing school again. So I have the scribe training, and I also have that the volunteering at the homeless shelter.
Okay, I'll pipe in really quick here. Well, I did a couple of different volunteer opportunities, but I think the one that made a big difference, and I think a lot of hospitals are getting this too, is a NODA program. It's No One Dies Alone. So when people are going through death in the hospital and say they don't have relatives, or their relatives can't get there, like they're traveling or something, you sit with the person while they're passing, and it's rewarding for you, and you're like basically getting the experience of being with somebody while they're dying. And I think that would definitely set you apart. I also have a therapy dog, but that was kind of more fun for me than anything. So I was going to the hospital and visiting with patients with my dog, but really, I think what'll make you stand out is if you try and do the NODA program. So that's my advice.
Thank you all for that. And then another question that students had was, so science classes, I'm not sure if you know, at State are kind of difficult to get into. If any of you did your prereqs at SF State, do you have any suggestions for students? And then how is managing like prereqs? Like, did you take them all at once? Did you spread them out? Or just any advice on prereqs?
Oh my God, I have to complain. I can never get any science classes at SFS State. Like I took all my science classes at City College because I just can't get in. So especially their lab, they only have one lab session for each class, I believe. Maybe a little bit more than that. But they won't take more than like 60 people for one semester for that class. And we have so many pre-nursing students at SFSU. So it was like I didn't know what to do, and then someone advised me to take classes in other colleges, and which counts the same as if you were taken in at SF State. So like it's the same credit, same class, and when you apply to other nursing program, they count as the same thing. So I took all of them at City College and took one at Evergreen Valley College in San Jose near my house. And I took them separately. I took like each science class in one semester. Like I remember I took chemistry in the first semester, and then microbiology the second, and then physio third, anatomy fourth. Because if you were to take 2 classes together, that will be lecture plus lab. That's too much for one semester. So I separate them. Yeah, so I highly recommend taking them at City College if you live in San Francisco. And the professors at City College, they're really great too. They're like really knowledgeable, and they're really encouraging students. And students are nice too. So yeah, try City College or other community college that you can find. Mm-hmm.
I want to reiterate the teachers at City College are absolutely wonderful. And that's where I did all my prereqs for night class. And I also did go to, Skyline. That also had some great classes. But City College is free during regular session if you live in the city.
Yeah, to reiterate that too, College of Marin has the same thing, and I don't think you pay for tuition either, and it's pretty easy to get. I shouldn't say it's easy. I think it's harder now to get classes there, but you can get classes there. So I had some classmates that came in from San Francisco to take classes there. So anyway, it's another option.
The thing about prereqs I would also recommend is if you're doing a prereq for a specific nursing program, I would recommend looking for online programs as well, and just double check with admissions if a curriculum from an online course does count for the prereq you're trying to take it for, because there are a lot of online class catalogs. Just do your research.
Well, thank you for that. And then to bounce off of that, when you guys applied to the program, like how was your academic standing? Like, were you mentally and academically prepared for it? Was there something you would have done differently when you applied?
I would have done everything a little bit sooner. I was pretty late on the jump, so prepare ahead of time is my best advice, and just do one step at a time, like it was said earlier. Make small little tasks for you in the day so you can get them all done. And also get your letter of recs early. It's very rude to like approach them last minute and ask for your letters of recommendation. I did that, but they're my friends at my work, so they were fine. But in any other circumstance would have been totally awful. So ask like a month or two ahead of time, give them time. And if you are asking them, give them a resume so that they have something to work with. That's also really important. I don't remember the rest of the question, but that's all I have.
Oh, the other thing is, I don't know, maybe they changed the application, but I think we did Nursing CAS and Cal State Apply, which are 2 totally separate applications. And for me, Nursing CAS took forever because I had schooling from several different schools. So definitely some time to put into that. It was super time consuming. I don't know if it's still like that, but it was a couple of years ago. So.
And then as far as the academic standing part, if you feel, I'm pretty sure San Francisco State will take your best grade. So if you feel you didn't do well in a certain class, you can retake it in order to get a higher grade. And I don't think this particular program does the average or the more recent one. I think it's whatever the better grade is. So I highly recommend, I don't think that should deter you from applying if your grade point average isn't as high as you would like it, because you should always apply. You can always apply again. But in the interim, if you don't get in the first time, you could try retaking a course to increase that GPA.
Oh, another great thing about SF State too is, I don't know about the BSN program, but I know the ELM program, they only count the last 60 units, which totally worked to my advantage because I really screwed up in undergrad. So I got a little bit of redemption, taking the classes when I was older, more mature. So anyway, but I had fun in undergrad, but that's another story.
Add to Doug and Caitlin, for BSN program, 2 years ago though, I'm not sure how is it right now, but 2 years ago, their requirement was that we were only allowed to take one repeat class. Like, for example, I got a C in microbiome. I'm only allowed to take that one class if I decide to. So if you have more than 2 C's, I'm not saying like you should give up or you should like you're dumb, but like it's gonna be really difficult. I'm telling the truth though. Like I had a B in microbiome and I had to retake it because I just really need to get that 4.0 GPA, and it is very hard. And with the T score, I got a 93. I remember, and then I have like 150 volunteer hours, and I have some like overseas volunteer experience too. So they interviewed me and they put me on the wait list. So it's very, very competitive. Yeah.
And if your GPA is lower and you have already exhausted that option, I would say really increasing all the other parts of that resume. So really get much more hours of volunteer service, get the leadership experience, and really beef up your resume so that it counteracts your GPA. Something that's eye-catching so they don't pass over you just because the GPA is important. And also there are other great programs all over the city, so definitely do a wide cast of where you're applying to, because everyone has different requirements.
And along with that too is like you could have a couple of different plans for how you want to get into nursing school. So maybe you don't do a BSN direct like transfer, but if you just get your bachelor's, a lot of times there's a lot more positions open in entry-level master programs, and they tend to be around the same length, if not just a little longer, but you would still get an entry into like the nursing profession, and you'd also have a little bit more experience with, you know, whatever you've
Definitely.
Wait.
No, you go ahead.
Just remember that GPA is only one of the criteria in order to apply. There are I'm just seconding what Caitlin had mentioned. There are so many more ways that you can shine on your application, whether that's your personal statement, what leadership did you hold and volunteer, how many hours did you volunteer, and most importantly, what does the volunteer experience mean to you? Because I think truly what they're looking for is passion and like why you want to be a nurse. And when you write your applications, when you have like a space, specifically your personal statement, when this is your chance to shine, make sure that you do elaborate on those passions.
Thank you all for that. We do have 10 minutes left, so we kind of want to end it on a question that hopefully you all can answer. And the question was, sorry, I lost it. Let me find it really quick. What do you all do to prevent burnout now or during finals or just in general? Like, how do you prevent burnout and how have you taken care of yourself while you're in nursing school?
So being in nursing school, you come in cohorts. Lucky for SF State, our cohorts typically come in about 20 students. And I will say no one will understand your nursing school struggle more than your cohort and each other. So one of the great things about this program is the way I prevent burnout is I confide in the people I'm closest with in my cohort. You know, that's what we're here for. We're here to support each other, and just being in the same clinicals, taking the same classes, they understand what you're going through as well. So don't be afraid to make connections and grow close with your cohort. That's what they're there for. And faculty and advisors, you know, all of these networks are here to support you. So that's how I prevent burnout.
For me, I'd say, you know, making sure you schedule in time for yourself every day. There's only so many hours in the day, and just have realistic expectations. that you can only study so much and you can only work on a paper for so long. And if you go into it having realistic expectations of what you can do in a day, you will decrease your stress a lot. And the more you can do things ahead of time, like look ahead in your syllabus and get some of the smaller items out of the way, when you near the end of the semester, it doesn't feel as daunting. But yeah, and then hang out with friends and do all the things you like to do. Exercise is huge, and eat well.
I would say for me, nursing school burnout is a lot to do, I think it was mentioned before, more with the scheduling than with the actual course load, with the courses themselves. Because if you can get through the nursing prerequisites, you can definitely get through the nursing classes. They are challenging, but you already have that like the background knowledge of the anatomy and the physiology, and so you're going to be able to get through the classes. So it's more so just managing time and balancing classes. And what has worked for me, it's kind of random, is I like to follow a lot of nurses on Instagram or on YouTube and just kind of motivate myself that way. And a lot of them have a lot of content as to like what the beginning of their nursing career looks like, and it's just inspiring to see other people doing it and succeeding in it when you feel like it's getting really hard and you don't know how to balance it. So just kind of looking to media, because there's a bunch of nurses out there, especially right now.
I would say along of the lines of what Caitlin said is just scheduling time for yourself, because you'll find that you sometimes have one free day or no free days based off of like your studying and stuff. So making sure that like you give yourself at least a couple of hours where you're not giving yourself the pressure of having to feel like you have to study something or like you have to be doing something, because it will get overwhelming. And if you don't take those breaks, I think that it can also be a little discouraging of just like how much work you have to do and what's left to do. So just know that things will eventually get done, but yeah, really taking those breaks I think is helpful.
Adding on to that, I feel like procrastination is my biggest enemy. Like everyone procrastinates, but when you have a lot of things to do, when you have paper due, you have tests coming up, it's really important not to procrastinate and just really put everything in a schedule and make a detailed timeline schedule of what you need to do today, what you need to do tomorrow, and just spread everything so it will be easier.
All right, I think that's everyone. So we still have quite a few questions that went through, but I do we are running out of time now. So what we will do is we have packed up all the questions that were sent to us. Some of these are more technical, informational questions where we can answer students directly, and some of them are more to certain panelists. We will be reaching panelists certain questions if we can't answer those ourselves. I want, on behalf of the Student Center, I want to thank everyone for attending. We had a great turnout, and I hope all of our attendees were able to learn a lot from our panelists. And thank you to our panelists for taking time out of your day to speak to our pre-nursing students. We appreciate you sharing your valuable information, your knowledge, and experiences with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Good luck, everybody. We believe in you.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Good luck.
Good luck, you can do it.
Good luck.